Hi there. It's May the 23rd and we're continuing our progress through the book of 2 Samuel, completing chapter 2 and going into chapter 3. The setting here is the enmity, the conflict between Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and Abner, Saul's chief of staff, Saul's military commander, against David, who is king of Judah, in Hebron, and there's a standoff between them. And so there eventually is a face-off, a battle that takes place at the town called Gibeon, modern El Jib, where there's actually been excavations done, and a deep well, a pool, has been found, an underground pool. And so it's around this pool that the men of David gather on one side, and the men of Ishbosheth and Abner gather on the other side. Abner suggests a combat, and he calls for them to maybe decide by representational conflict who is going to win this battle. And so 12 men from each side get up and they start to fight, and they begin to kill one another in the abdomen. Hebrew has it under the fifth rib, but that's the abdomen area, and so this develops into a pitched battle, which actually the men of David, who are obviously far better trained and equipped, begin to win, and they rout the men of Abner and Ishbosheth, and they actually chase them and kill 360 of them, whereas David only loses 20 troops. And in the process of this battle, the brother of David's commander, Joab, whose name is Asahel, pursues Abner, the commander of Ishbosheth's troops, and Abner basically turns and says, Asahel, if you keep pursuing me, I'm going to have to kill you in self-defense, and I don't want to do that because that will create a blood feud between Joab, because you're Joab's brother, you're the brother of the commander of David's troops, and myself. However, Asahel continues to pursue, and Abner carries out his threat and he kills Asahel. And then as they are continuing to pursue Abner and his troops, Abner appeals from the top of a hill. Abner turns back and he appeals for a truce. And he says, look, let's call a halt to this. This is getting us nowhere. This is just going to divide our nation. And so they call a truce. But there is an ongoing enmity. And for 7.5 years, going into chapter 3, for 7.5 years, David is king of Judah at Hebron. During this time he has 6 sons, born mostly to different wives. And in this time as well, Ishbosheth is king of the rest of Israel. However, Ishbosheth is a very weak king, and he's dependent on the strength and the power of Abner. Now, a dispute arises between Abner and Ishbosheth over Saul's harem. The harem of a king in those ancient times, the wives of a king, were seen to be the property of his successor. And so Ishbosheth is accusing Abner, the king's commander, of taking his rights and of sleeping with Rizpah, who is one of Saul's concubines. And Abner is really angry about this. He exercises his muscle and he says, okay, I am now going to withdraw my support. I have given you Hesed, he says to Ishbosheth, I have operated under my covenant obligation, but because you've broken your covenant with me, I am now going to bring the kingdom under David's leadership. And so he goes to David and he says, David, I am going to bring Israel around you. And it says that David and Abner make a covenant. It actually says they cut a covenant together, so there's an obligation between the two of them. However, Joab and Zeruiah, who are the 2 brothers of Asahel, who Abner has killed, hear about this, and they make a ruse to get Abner to come back to Hebron after he's left, under pretense that they want to talk to him further about this covenant, and they actually kill Abner. Now, one of the things that's so detrimental about this action, not only that it's the fulfillment of a blood feud, but Hebron, where it happens, is one of the cities of refuge, which has been appointed under Torah, which is appointed under the regulations of Moses, as a place of refuge for manslayers. And of course, Abner, in that sense, is one who has killed someone in battle, and Zeruiah and Joab, in wreaking this vengeance on Abner, are actually transgressing that right, that law of Hebron being a sacred place. So David is really displeased. The other thing he's displeased about, being a shrewd politician, David realizes that Abner has the support of the rest of Israel that he desperately wants to bring together. And what's happened here in the killing of Abner could cost him the rest of the support of Israel. And so he makes Joab, after this murder, he makes Joab publicly mourn for Abner, and David himself fasts and shows bitter regret for what has happened to this leader of Ishbosheth's armies. And he says it wasn't his intention, this wasn't the king's doing that made this happen. One of the things that we see here that's very important is the power of covenant, because there are certain things that are not done because of the power of Hesed, which is mentioned a few times in these chapters. We know, of course, that God's covenant with us is everlasting, that his Hesed cannot be broken, that he will never betray us, he will never turn against us. He's not a man, the scripture says, that he should lie. And so today we can rely on the Hesed of God, even when we see men not being faithful to their word. Have a very good May the 23rd.